Hi, today we're talking about how to dispatch your truck based on the mileage, based on the route, on the time when the load has to be there, and a little bit about based on hours of service of the driver. I have a map here in the back of me, and then after we're done here, we're gonna go to my computer and then do some route calculations and try to find the best route for the truck. Before I start, I would like to say that this video, like all my videos, are not, it's not scripted. I know what I'm going to talk about, but I don't prepare at all. I just start talking. And that's why you can hear a lot of ums and a lot of pauses. And then on top of that, English is not my first language. And I try to make this as understandable as I can. So let's go straight to the point. I'm going to be using this laser pointer. I should have went with red, but I found only a green one. So hopefully you can see it here in the back of me on this map. I'm going to be standing here on the side so the autofocus does not try to focus on me. So you have the whole map in the focus, and then here's my laser pointer. And what I'm going to do is, since I'm based in Michigan, right here in Grand Rapids, I'm going to use that as my starting point for most of these loads, imaginary loads, because I know some of these miles and distances. I have them in my head, and I can just shoot it out. And then forgive me if some of them are not correct or if I make a mistake, but you will get my point. So let's say you're here in Grand Rapids and your driver wants to go down to Dallas, Texas. I used to run this route when I was driving, and that was back on logbooks, like paper logs, and you could do whatever you wanted with them, and but you can still make it in one day. So let's say I get loaded here. Let's say today is Monday, and this load delivers on Wednesday morning in Dallas, Texas. So from Grand Rapids to Dallas, you have about around 1,100 miles, give or take. And then what I would do as an owner operator, I would go to Chicago and then go here on 57 or 55 down towards Memphis, and then take, I think this is I-30, and then take it all the way to Dallas. So my way of delivering a load down there would be, because by the time you get unloaded or you go to get loaded and you're here in Grand Rapids, you usually get loaded around noon, sometimes 1, sometimes 2 o'clock. So now you have 2 days to get it down there, and then so what makes sense is to stop somewhere for a break to get some sleep somewhere in the middle of the way. And here, I think the name of the city was called Matthews, Missouri. And then I would get to there, and then in the morning I would just continue to go to Dallas. But here it would be a little bit more than a half of my trip. So that way, when I get here early, like 6, 7, 8, 9 a.m., depending on the hours, I could still get to Dallas around 4 p.m. And that way I can just go to the nearest truck stop, get a shower, get some rest, and then for the morning I could just get up early and beat the traffic and go to my delivery. Some drivers like to go directly to their delivery and stay there overnight, which is much better to do. But it all depends on your situation. So if you have a load that has to deliver in Dallas from Grand Rapids, so basically the mileage here is around 1,100 miles, and that's 550 miles a day on average. You can easily make that in 2 days. Even if you're going down to Houston, Houston is a little bit more miles, probably like between 12 and 1300 from Grand Rapids, but you can still make it in one day because that's around 600 miles a day. And now that we have e-logs, it's a little bit more difficult to do. And if you don't have any trouble along the way, you can still make it down there. So the basic thing to do in this situation that you as a dispatcher have to do is first ask your driver. So it's Monday morning, and you're gonna ask them, um, did you do a reset? So did they have their 34 hours of reset? Okay, yes, they did it over the weekend. So now they have fresh hours. They can either deliver the load that they were under, or if they were already empty over the weekend, then they can just go and pick up right here in Grand Rapids or in the surrounding area. So once they load, now once they actually start in the morning, their clock starts ticking. And now, if they start at 9 a.m., they have to come here to like here, middle of their route. They would have to find a place to stay and sleep. They could even probably make it to Memphis, but here would be more realistic that they end up that night. So they have 14 hours on their clock to work. They have 11 hours to drive. So if they start at 8 a.m., they can legally only drive until 10 p.m., including the 3 hours that they have for on duty. So they can drive 11 hours, and then they can have those 3 hours. They can use it for loading here, for a break, for fuel, lunch, anything like that. So legally, they can be on duty until 10 p.m., and legally they can only drive 11 hours. So whether that's going to be until 9 p.m. or 10 p.m., that depends on how many hours on duty they used. So now, let's say they come here at 10 p.m., and now their break starts. 10 hours in their sleeper berth, and that puts you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. So at 8 a.m. they can, do their pre-trip inspection, like 15 minutes or so, and then they can start driving. So around 8 a.m. they get up, and to Dallas here they are gonna have maybe like 8 to 9 hours of driving time, depending on the situation. And again, I'm just pulling this from my head. It doesn't have to be, if you do the miles, it may be different, but probably around 8 to 9 hours of driving. So then they can come here around 5 p.m. and then get some rest. So now, if they go directly to the delivery, they can start early, they can deliver, and then usually sometimes they don't even have to start their e-log. So that's an advantage. And that means, like, if they have to pick up a load later that day, let's say around 2 p.m., then their clock hasn't started. They haven't started the clock. That's why it's always best to go directly to the receiver if they have room to stay there, and if they have enough hours to get there. So if they go directly to receiver there in Dallas, then they can get up early without starting their clock. They can, drive slowly so they don't activate, like if they have to move around the parking lot and then back up to the dock and just get unloaded. So also, if you don't have a load and they're in Dallas and they're waiting for an next reload, they can wait there without having to start their clock. So if you find them a load at noon, 11 or 2 p.m., then they can start their clock and they have fresh hours. They have fresh 14 hours of on duty. If they go to a truck stop right here before Dallas, and some people like to do that, you can't blame them. Drivers need to eat, they have to take a shower. They have facilities there, like in the middle of the night you have to go to restroom, then you stay at a truck stop and you can use their facilities. But then you have to get up early if you want to beat the traffic. Most of these big cities, they'll have traffic in the morning. So if your appointment is at 8 a.m. And you start at 7:30 a.m., that's not enough time. You're going to get stuck in traffic. Um, you're going to have to look for the company, for the address, and then you can't make it. You might be late. But if you get up early, like 6 a.m., then you're starting your clock. Your ELD is started at 6 a.m. And then anything you do in that day, you go to your delivery and then you wait for a load, or you wait for them to load you for a few hours, then you lose all that time. Then the drivers cannot use that time against their driving. So if they start at 6 a.m. in the morning here before Dallas, then they can only work that day until 8 p.m. at night. So let's say you get a load that picks up at 2 p.m. here in Dallas. That's like 1,200 miles to Columbus, Ohio. Now they load at 2 or 3 p.m. and they already wasted 6 or 8 hours of their time. So now they cannot load and just drive 11 hours and then drive next day 11 hours. Now they can only drive until 8 p.m., which is about 6 hours, and then they'll drive 6 hours somewhere to here, and now tomorrow they can only drive another 11 hours, and they get up at 6 7 in the morning and they only drive 11 hours. Now they're somewhere here, and now if they have an early appointment in Ohio, they cannot make it. They cannot legally make that appointment. They can't be there on time because they got loaded late here. They already had started their clock. They wasted half a day waiting here, and they cannot make it to Columbus in a day and a half. They need 2 full days. So best scenario would be to deliver at the stay at night at the receiver, and get up early, deliver early, and pick up your load early. You look for a load that picks up early. Don't look for a load that picks up late, because that's going to be trouble. They're going to waste hours. They're going to sit. No one likes to sit. No one wants to do that. Everyone wants to deliver early, pick up early, and run, so you can deliver early here, and then you're ready for the next load. Now, an alternative, if the driver wants to go to a truck stop and do whatever they have to do, if they get here on Wednesday at 4 p.m., they can do all that. They still have, they only drove 8 hours or 9 hours, and they still have time here to do whatever they have to do at a truck stop. They can stay there for 2-3 hours and do what they have to do, and then before their ELD shows them that their day is over, they can move to that receiver and stay there overnight, and then they can start their clock whenever they want in the morning. So that's a way to do 2-day trip. So basically all dispatchers have to know this, and I wanted to do another video about hours of service, but basically drivers can only drive 11 hours a day. 3 hours can be on duty, and that includes loading, unloading, fuel, a break, 30-minute break during the day. So all together 14 hours. And then after 14 hours is up, they have to do 10 hours in their sleeper berth. And then after 10 hours, they have fresh 14 hours. There are some exceptions like sleeper berth split, but that's more complicated. That's not for this video. So basically all you have to know is that a driver can drive only 11 hours a day and be 3 hours on duty. So let's say you're here in Grand Rapids and your driver wants to go east. We call it east from here. So let's say they want to go to upstate New York. So now first thing here, you see that we have Canada here. And most of these small carriers, they cannot go through Canada. I can't go to. Some of the big carriers can, but then they have to wait here in the border. But usually everyone goes around Canada. So If you go to DAT or that board, then like if you want to go to Buffalo, it will show you 420 miles, I believe, but it's actually 500 miles because you have to go around. So I always calculate my miles, which are 500 miles to Buffalo and about 600 miles to Rochester, give or take. But that board or routing or even Google Maps will route you through Canada, but just remember that trucks usually cannot go through Canada unless they have authority. And sometimes when I go to Wisconsin from here, it will tell me to go over lake. It will give me like 100 miles from here to Milwaukee, 120 miles, but it's not, it's actually like 300 some miles. So always pay attention where it routes you. So let's say we have a load from Grand Rapids to upstate New York. Buffalo is about 500, Rochester about 600 miles, Syracuse about 700 miles. So if you want to go to Buffalo, 500 miles, you can do it in a day. Usually 600 miles would be most that drivers can do with these hours of service. If you have perfect conditions, you can do more, but 600 would be just like a realistic. Now, if you have a driver that is keeps like getting stuck in traffic and like likes to stop a lot at the truck stop, that driver you should give less miles, probably like 500 miles a day, if you want them to deliver early in the morning, or find them a load that has open window for delivery. Then you're sure that they're not going to be late. Some drivers like to be early. Some drivers are always late. You can't change it. It's different. Every human is different. So let's say we're booking a load to Buffalo, and from here to Buffalo, 500 miles. You always take about 60 mile per hour average as your calculation starting point. So 60 miles per hour is good average for a truck. So if you have to be at a pickup and you have 120 miles to go to the pickup, just be sure that it's not going to be in less than 2 hours. A driver need probably more because sometimes they have routes involved, lights, So if you have 120 miles to the pickup, just count between 2.5 and 3 hours. But if you're on a highway, then you can safely do 600 miles per hour as 60 miles per hour as your average speed. So from here, Grand Rapids to Buffalo, 500 miles, and then you divide it by 60, and then you get like 8.5 hours of driving. And now, driver cannot make it in 8.5 hours, even if they have perfect conditions, because they have to stop for fuel, do a 30-minute break after 8 hours of driving, get some lunch, get a shower, whatever they need to do, scale the load. So usually what I do is I always round it up to the next digit. So if this is 8.5 hours in the perfect scenario, then I would just go to 9.5, probably 10 hours. So 10 hours of driving is the perfect scenario, at least. If there's traffic, anything else unforeseen, then it's gonna be more. But you can always say, hey, you would need 10 hours to get from here to here. And then as you notice, now if a driver has 11 hours of driving time in a day, then if we have 600 miles to Rochester, then the driver can get to Rochester in one day as well, in those 11 hours. Syracuse is going to be a little bit more hard because there's almost 700 miles. I think it's like 670 from Grand Rapids. But if everything is perfect, there's nothing unforeseen, a driver could actually make it to Syracuse in 11 hours, but that's, it's a risk. So if a driver tells you they want a one-day trip, you should always look for a load that's 600 miles or less if this is a good driver. If the driver is always late, then give them 500 miles, and that's what they can do in one day. So when they tell you I need a 1 day trip, just now also before and now all this is if the driver has fresh hours. So that means a driver had a 10-hour break that night, or they're coming from a reset, which is 34 hours. But in any case, they have 11 hours available for driving, after reset. But if your driver is in Grand Rapids and they're going to Syracuse and they could not make it all the way to the end that day, they had to stop in Rochester or in Buffalo, and then they still have about hour or 2 3 hours to Syracuse. Then they have to start in the morning, wait for their 10 hours, and then they start in the morning. Let's say they start at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. And now they still have 2.5 hours to get to Syracuse. Now they're late in Syracuse. They're there at 10, 11. And by the time they get unloaded, it's like 11 noon, and they already used 3 hours of their on-duty time, probably like a couple of hours of driving. And now they only have 9 hours available for the next load. So you have to take that into the account. If they are unloading here late, they had to stop earlier here because they couldn't make it all the way to the end. Now they only have 9 hours of driving, and you can't really look for a load for them that's 600 or 700 miles if they have to deliver. Let's say they have to come back to Grand Rapids or go to Columbus, and you find them a load that delivers at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. That's impossible to do. You can't do that. So you have to either find them a shorter load with less miles where they have to deliver early, or with a later appointment here in Columbus or Grand Rapids, or an open window delivery, and then they can come back and do that load. You can't always expect that the drivers will have fresh hours every day and that there are not going to be any unforeseen circumstances, because in trucking a lot can happen and a lot happens, and it's hard to plan. So whenever you plan a load, you have to take into the calculations whether the driver has fresh hours, if they can unload early, if they can load early. Maybe they're sick. Maybe they have an appointment that they have to, like if they're home, they have to finish that appointment. There's a lot of planning. You can't just assume that the driver is magically going to appear at that time. You have to do your part and plan a load. If you don't plan a load correctly, a driver will not be able to deliver that load in a timely and a safely manner. So a lot of that depends. So you can't blame the driver. If the driver is always late and they cannot deliver, then maybe it's not the driver. Maybe you're not planning the load correctly. You should talk to them, ask them, how many miles can you drive a day? How many miles how many hours do you have to sleep at night? Can you drive at night? What time do you get in the morning? Do you like to go to this area? Do you don't like this area? Now I can tell you, most drivers like Midwest and South, because that's these are so-called easy areas. Okay, it's easy here. If you go here, especially from here, then that's a lot of miles, and that means the driver is going to be away from home for a long time, and there's a lot of driving. In the winter, there's a lot of snow here. It's hard to drive through Wyoming, Idaho, Colorado. All these states, most of them require that you have chains. Some drivers will not deal with chains. Some drivers don't know how to install them, and seriously, it's really hard to drive through this area during winter. So in summer it might be fine, but during winter, the driver really has to know what they're doing and be willing to go there. Don't push someone to go there in winter, or even without winter if they don't want to go here. California here has a lot of rules. and to me they feel like a different country. They have it's not a border, but like a checkpoint wherever you come in with a big truck. They check everything. There are so many rules for truckers. Some trucks don't even qualify to go into California, so you also have to check with your driver if they want or if they can go to California with their truck. This here is all open area, a lot of desert. There's not much, like you can drive for hours here and see nothing. Some people don't like this. Some people like it because they have a high speed limits here, even for trucks. It's like 75, I think even like 80 miles per hour in some of these areas, and you can just drive, you can just fly. But I don't advise that anyone, like if you're a big truck, don't drive that fast. I mean, the law says you can, but I wouldn't drive. That's not safe for a 80,000 pound truck. Here in Oklahoma, you have a lot of tolls. Just so you know, there are some tolls here in Texas area, in Dallas and in Houston. Here in these northern states, it's also open. There is not a lot, not many cities. Winter is also no fun, like starting from here, and then here it gets worse, and then all the way here, winter is no fun. Um, Texas is a big, great state. There's a lot of floats coming in and out, and Texas sometimes can be tricky. If you Sometimes it's hard to get a good rate out of Texas. Usually they pay good rates to Texas, like decent rates, but sometimes out of Texas you can not get a good paying load. Like right now, uh, you can you can get a good paying load out of Texas to Midwest or East or anywhere, but usually you can't. Usually they pay cheap. So that's why most people that go to Texas from anywhere, they try to get out of Texas. Now Oklahoma is even worse as far as getting out. But what I would do is I would send my truck to Dallas or Texas, Houston, and then get them like a 1 day trip, like something really short, like 400 or 500 miles. Get them to Little Rock, Memphis, Kansas City, Missouri, maybe even down here to Louisiana, but no Oklahoma. Oklahoma is not good as far as load goes. So I would just get them a short 1 day trip, get them out, and then from here, just get them something to east or up there or this way, whatever. Laredo is different. Laredo is always different. Anywhere from here to Laredo, they don't pay that well. But from here, you can get a lot of good paying loads, especially if you have a team, and then you can just send them, whenever, wherever, because they have, the border here. There's a lot of freight coming from Mexico, and when you get to Laredo, it's just like 3 or 4 lanes of just trucks. It's just crazy. You have to see that to believe it. Now, Florida. Most drivers do not like to go to Florida because Florida, there is nothing, there is no freight from Florida. So usually when you find loads to Florida from anywhere, it pays very well. But that's with a reason, because from there it's hard to find freight. Usually what people would do is find something short. Now, Florida here, most drivers do not like to go to Florida because there is no freight out of there. I mean, there is, but usually pays very cheap, like 80 cents per mile, dollar a mile. Sometimes $1.20 if we have good rates, but usually less than $1 a mile. And what would people usually do? They would take a good paying load from anywhere here, like very good paying load, and then go here to Florida, and then find something dirt cheap to Atlanta or Carolinas, maybe even Alabama. But find something really cheap, and usually it's very heavy, and get out of there because you made all your money to coming here. You just lose a day, get something just to cover the fuel, get out of there, and then from this area find something better to go anywhere else besides Florida. Some people, and I would do that too sometimes, if I get a really good paying load to Florida and I don't find anything um, from Florida, by the time my driver is empty, I would just send them empty all the way up here. I don't recommend you do that. You have to do your calculations to see if that makes sense to you, if you're going to make any money. But sometimes I would do that because I'd rather concentrate on finding a load for next day, a good paying load from here instead of losing a whole day and just working on that truck. If I have other trucks to cover, I can't find a load from here. I'll just send him empty and then find a good paying load. Much more easier from here than from Florida. Here you have a lot of mountains, and sometimes drivers do not like that, like Carolinas, West Virginia, here, and then this part here of Pennsylvania. Well, my laser has to be charged, so I'm just going to use my finger. So here there are some tolls here in Virginia, and all these are mountains. So just be aware of that, of that here. There are a lot of mountains, and then like if you go north here, this I-68, that's also mountains. You don't want to send your truck here. It's really bad, especially if they're loaded. You should rather have them go around instead of this part here on the I-68. And then here in Pennsylvania, they have tolls. All this I-76 is very expensive from here all the way to Philadelphia. It's all toll. So if you're in a big truck, you can expect to pay, I think it's about like two or $300 just to go from one point to the other, and it's very expensive. You have to take that into account. But let us go to the computer, and then I'll try to show that to you over there. All right, so let's do it this way now. So here we have our map. This is our United States map. So I was trying to give you some tips about certain areas. Now we got all the way to Pennsylvania here. What's interesting about Pennsylvania, we have this toll all the way here, and we have tolls. Basically, if you cross into New Jersey and New York here, New York State, you're gonna have to pay a lot of money for a bridge. So all these bridges will cost a lot of money. There are some tolls here in upstate New York, like this, they call it a throughway. So toll all the way here is that this is all tolls, and then this portion here is not toll. I-90 here by Erie in Pennsylvania, this is not a toll, and then not a toll all the way up to here, and then this is where the toll starts. So the toll is I-80, goes all the way to Youngstown, and actually here just before Youngstown, I-80 splits off, and then it's not toll from here all the way to here. But then if you're on I-80 and you go to I-76, this is all toll. And then if you go this way on I-80 through Ohio, it's all tollways all the way to Indiana, and then Indiana I-80 / I-90 here is also all tolls. In Michigan, there are no tolls here, only if you go upstate to, let me zoom out, to the bridge here, to Mackinac Bridge, then this is toll. And here now we continue our trip into Chicago, and then this little portion here is not toll, but then as soon as you pass here, this Skyway, and then all these, like you have a lot of booths here, we're gonna pay $3, $4, $5, $6, $8 for each booth. So this is all toll here as well. Now on this part here, you don't have a lot of tolls. I'm not aware of any actually tolls here, maybe somewhere locally, but at least these freeways are not toll, and then you don't have to pay for them. Let's say we want to go from Grand Rapids to Syracuse, like we said before, and then we're going to do Syracuse, New York, and then switch them up. So when you get your toll, your route, it says here this route has tolls, and then this route crosses through Canada. So they give you the closest option here, and then it shows 530 miles to go through Canada, but we are not gonna do that. We're gonna do click on this route, and that will give us 634 miles. So it's 100 miles more. But then there are no tolls here, and then all this, all the way to here is toll, and then it starts again here all the way through to Syracuse. And if you click here, then you have directions, and then it will tell you here that this is toll, and then like where you're passing and all that, through Pennsylvania a little bit, and then you're entering New York here. So it gives you all that. Some programs can, you can, like in Google Maps here and some other programs, you can avoid highways, tolls, ferries. And like if we click here, avoid tolls, it will route you here through I-86. But then here again, this is, oh yeah, US 2 here. A lot of drivers would do that to bypass this portion here. They would use Route 2 here, and this is a decent route. It only has a few lights here, and then here it's all open road. So a lot of drivers do this, but then here they have these rest areas, and there is sometimes DOT, state police, they're waiting for trucks here. So that's why some drivers are avoiding this route too. So you can avoid tolls, you can avoid highways, but to me that would make sense to avoid highways, but there is an option here too, so you can do that. If you're going here into the Northeast, this is all, I would call it old country. So when people came over to United States, they settled here first, and they started building the cities and the roads. And then if you go here, it's going to be a mess with a big truck, because a lot of roads are tight. The intersections are small. A lot of low clearance bridges. A lot of restrictions for big trucks, and you have to have an experienced driver that will go here. Most drivers won't even touch it. Philadelphia as well, Baltimore, downtown, Pittsburgh here. It's all, these areas are very tight, just so you know. And then even when you go here, I mean, these areas are okay unless you go somewhere into downtown and these little local streets, then because there are no rules here. Like if you go to Midwest, everything is open. You have these south to south to north highways, and then east to west. Here there are no rules. Here, I mean, they had to improvise because they have no space here. Philadelphia downtown is very tricky. I was there a few times, and then I refused to go there because it's just not worth it. Just so you know, if a load is going to Philadelphia, then keep in mind that not many people want to go there. Your driver is gonna get stuck. So Philadelphia downtown, no, not good. Baltimore has a lot of ports here, So Baltimore downtown is not that bad, but it can get tricky. So most drivers will not go to Baltimore, and then even here, usually they have these ports, and people don't want to mess with ports because sometimes they need you have to have a TWIC card. Your driver has to have a TWIC card, and or they have to have an escort. Then you have to pay for it, and you have to wait for them to escort you. It's just um, waste of time. And then usually these loads are heavy, and you get loaded late, and then you have to beat the traffic, and then your all day is wasted. This area here is okay. I used to run here a lot, and this is an okay area. It's not that bad, but remember, you still have to pass through here or through here to get there. So basically, what I want to tell you at the end is Midwest is okay, Southeast is okay. Here you have mountains, mountains, tolls, very tight, low bridges. Here also another thing from here, when you go here, there are no loads coming out. It's hard to find a load unless you are taking a load to like New Jersey or here east to east. But if you're trying to get out to Midwest, then it's going to be cheap and it's going to be hard to find. What I used to do is have my drivers deliver here and then start looking for a load from here on the way, and then just have them come empty here to pick up a load, because it's going to be paying probably same or even more money, but they're not going to lose time and fuel pulling a heavy load from here. And then I wanted to do a bonus on this video, but the thing is you can't see the highways. I'm gonna look for a map with highways here to show you something. The United States highway system was built like no other system in the world, and they're connecting all these cities and going across the country, which is a big country, but they marked them very interesting too. So you see, like I-35 goes south north. Okay, so all these highways that are numbered odd. So this is an odd number 35. They all go south and south north. All like I-70 here, all highways that go east to west are numbered with an even number. So even numbers go east west. I-70, I-40, I-80, I-90, and odd numbers go south north. I-5, I-15, 25, 35, 65, 55, 95. Now, what you can also notice that they go in an order. Okay, so it starts here with I-5, and then 15, 25, 29, 35, 55, 57, 65, 79, 70, 75, 79, and so on. So what they did is roughly the percentage of the country. Okay, so I-5, this is about 5% of the country, and then it starts here from left to right, from west to east, and then these numbers go up. So we have 5% of the land here from the ocean to here, and then we have 15% from the ocean to here, 25% of the current country, 35, 55, like 50s here, somewhere in the middle. So, and then same thing from south to north. I-10, 10%, I-40, 40% of the country, 70%, like all the way up here, and then 90%, 94 here. So that's very cool. But then also they have these mile markers, and they always change. For example, you would like here in Michigan, So here you would enter, like when you enter I-94, this is I-94, and then it starts from mile marker 1 and so on. So the mile marker is 1, but the first exit, I think it's exit 1 here, but first exit might be exit 5, or first exit might be exit 10. Now, uh, some states used to mark it that way. I think California used to go by the count, like exit number 1 is the first exit. When you enter exit number 2 is the second exit, no matter how far they're away from border. But and I think they changed that. But all other states, most other states, go by the mile marker. So, for example, if there is no exit until the mile marker 5 here, then that exit would be number 5. And then you have mile marker 6, 7, 8, and then you have an exit at mile marker 10, and that's why that exit is exit 10. So if you have exit 50 here, that means that that exit is 50 miles away from the Indiana border here from going from west to east. So if someone throws you out of an airplane or you're blindfolded and then somehow you get to see here and then you notice you are on I-94 on exit 50, then you know that you're in the northern portion of United States. You're about 90% up from the beginning from the border, from the south border. So you have 10% of the country left to the northern border. So you're on 94, exit 50. That means you're 50 miles from west to east. Okay. So that's how you can tell where you are. And the same thing with the highways that go south and north. They also go up and down, and they start in each state. They start accounting, so you know always how far you're away from the border of the neighboring state. You know where you are roughly in the United States. And that helps you a lot. Now, I'm not saying most people will never wake up like that, but I'm just saying if you're driving or if someone tells you that they're on I-35 in Texas, mile marker 100, then you would know that you are 100 miles away from the border, and if you have a broken truck or you have to call a service or something, or the driver tells you where you are, then you can just quickly go to the map and then find where they are. So yeah, that's about it for this time, and I'll see you around. Come back, subscribe, and like the video.